Hallelujah. 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 We give God all the glory, all the praise, all the honor, all the majesty. We're counting us worthy to appear before Him today. May our sacrifices never be in vain, in Jesus' name. Amen. Today's two scriptures from the book of Ezekiel chapter 34 and from the first book of Peter chapter 5. Essentially, it talks about the role of the shepherds leading the sheep. And essentially, God taking a stand saying, I'm not so pleased with what is going on. I'm going to come, save my own people, take them out of their darkness, and so on and so forth. But when I was reading both scriptures, there were two verses particularly that stood out to me. One verse from the first lesson and one verse from the second lesson. In Ezekiel 34, verse 25, as they were reading it, we're all saying amen. They were bringing, God making all these proclamations of blessings, showers of blessings and things of that sort. Verse 25, it says, I will make a covenant of peace with them and cause wild beasts to cease from their land. And then it says, and they will dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. I thought to myself, I don't know about dwelling in the wilderness and sleeping in the woods. But, it seems like a positive proclamation. But when you think about it, everyone wants mansions and duplexes. I don't think anyone thinks of a blessing when God says you will dwell safely in the woods and in the wilderness, right? Right. Okay. And the second lesson, 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 10. It says, may the God of all grace who called us to His eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after you have suffered a while, He will perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. And I thought to myself, why do we have to suffer a while? Why can't we just be established and perfected and brought to a positive place? But essentially, today's message is a very simple one. And it is the journey from Egypt to the Promised Land. The point is, we all want to get to the Promised Land, but no one wants to go through the wilderness. We all want to get to heaven, but no one wants to partake in the sufferings of Christ. But my message to us today is, please, I urge you to not despise your time in the wilderness. Do not despise your time of suffering. Right? We are Christ followers, we're imitators of Christ. As Christ suffered, if we truly want to get to heaven, at some point, we're going to endure some level of suffering. So the path to your promised land must of all necessity go through the wilderness. And this path is a path that is laced with suffering. And I asked myself, why? What is the purpose of this wilderness? Why can't we just, go from Egypt and take an Uber and get to the promised land and not have to go through this wilderness? And if I were to ask you today, do you prescribe you something and say, I'm going to give you something, but you'll have to endure heartburn and chest pain and back pain and nausea and vomiting and cramping and bleeding? You say no. But for those who have had babies and have gone through the period of pregnancy, these are some of the normal things you experience in pregnancy. Cramping, vomiting, heartburn, back pain. Shai was saying her back was hurting the other day. This wasn't something she experienced before she became pregnant. But if you hear of all those things, people say, no, I'm okay. But then we come before God and say, we want babies, we want babies, we want babies. The path to that child is a path of hardship. It's a path of pain. It's a path of suffering. But when the baby comes, it's almost like you forget everything. So you are in your 9 months of pregnancy right now, whatever wilderness, whatever hardship, whatever suffering you're facing. Don't despise it. There's a purpose, there's a reason behind it. If someone can find the book of Genesis chapter 37. There's just one verse I'm going to draw our attention to. This is the story of Joseph. We all know the story. Genesis 37 from verse 22.
And Reuben said unto them.
It says, and Reuben said unto them,
Shed no blood.
Shed no blood.
But cast him into this pit.
But cast him into this pit.
That is in the wilderness.
That is where?
In the wilderness.
That is in the wilderness.
And lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands.
Thank you. So we all know the story of what happened to Joseph. This was someone who was beloved by his father. Everything was good. But this is the path this is the path he went through to get to his wilderness. It said, cast him into what? Into the pit that is in the wilderness. And what happened? They found some people that were looking for slaves. They brought him out of the wilderness, sold into slavery, prison, accused for wrongdoing, blah, blah, blah. He ended up becoming the second in command to the king. If I told you, Joseph, would you like to be the second in command and king? You would have said, yes, of course. If I said, Joseph, would you like to be beaten and sold to slavery and go to prison and be accused for sleeping with your king's wife and all of these things? You said, no, thank you. We all want to get to the promised land, but no one wants to go through the wilderness. So the purpose of this wilderness, God has a purpose behind it. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, if you can read from verse 2.
And thou shalt remember all the way.
It says you shall remember all the way.
Which the Lord thy God led thee.
Which the Lord thy God led thee.
This 40 years
all this 40 years in the wilderness.
To humble thee.
This is what God is telling the people of Israel. You'll remember when I led you through this wilderness. This 40 years. Number one, to humble thee. To humble thee. There are 6 things the Lord hates. 7 are an abomination. The first is a proud look. God saw the pride in the heart of Satan and cast him out of heaven. Pride. So God said, I took you through the wilderness, number one, to humble you. That's the same thing they talked about in the second lesson in 1 Peter 5. It says, be humble. You have to take out pride from your heart. This is the purpose. It's so difficult for us to say, or to not see the pride that we have sometimes. Sometimes we are proud and we don't even know it. Sometimes we look at people a certain way with pride and we don't even know it. So if you don't know you have a problem, how can you go and find a cure for that problem? So when God sees that level of pride in you, He Himself will purge it out of you. So He said, I took you through that wilderness to humble you. It's kind of hard to be proud in the wilderness because I'm not sure who you're showing off for. Right? So God wants to purge out all those things that will keep us from getting into heaven. That is one purpose of the wilderness. I did it to humble you. Continue.
And to prove thee.
And to prove thee.
To know what was in thine heart.
It said, I did it to know what was in your heart.
Whether thou wouldest keep His commandments or not.
Whether thou wouldest keep His commandments or not. So God has a purpose for this wilderness you're going through. He did it to humble you, to test you, to see what is in your heart. Because that is the basis of the judgment of what you're getting into heaven. It's what's going on inside. It's not what I see. It's not what you see. If we were not privy to the conversation between Jesus and the thief, we would have thought the thief was for sure going to hell because he was being crucified for sins he committed. But Christ looked beyond that and looked in his heart and saw someone who was remorseful, someone who, even at the very last second, with the little opportunity he had, was willing to turn his life around. So what is in your heart? A lot of times you don't know the true nature of people until storms hit, until the wilderness hits. Right? When you're bringing a baby and you're celebrating dedication, everyone is there to celebrate with you. When that child is sick in the hospital, not one person is there to check on the child with you. When you're going through your joy, your period of freedom, of happiness, everyone is there to celebrate with you. But when you're going through your hardship, who is there to lend you a helping hand? So when you're going through your wilderness, things change. Christ wants to see, are you serving me because of what is going on in Egypt? Are you serving me because of what's going on in the wilderness? Or are you serving me because of this promised land I'm taking you to? If God does not change, right? I am God and I change it not. So why must your walk with Him? Why must your love for Him? Why must your relationship with Him change based on your situation? When you're in the promised land, you go to church every day. Now you're in your wilderness. You don't know the address to the church anymore. So God said, I did this to see what was in your heart, to prove you. Continue.
And He humbled thee,
Okay.
and suffered thee to hunger.
It says He allowed you to hunger. Now I want you to see this. God says while you were in the wilderness, He Himself allowed you to hunger. Continue.
And fed thee with manna,
But then He fed you with manna,
which thou knewest not.
which thou knewest not.
Neither did thy fathers know.
Okay.
That He might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord.
While you were in the wilderness, I made you hungry. Yes, I gave you food. Special food that the angels are eating. I made you full with that. To let you know that what you're going through, that this world is not just about your material gain. It's not about just the bread, the water, the drink, but also about this relationship with God, about every word that proceeds out of His mouth, about this book that we call the Bible. So you don't come to this world and lose your focus and think it's all about working, making money, providing for your family, and paying bills. There is more to life than that. And God wanted to use that opportunity to let them know that His Word, a relationship with Christ, is an extremely important and valuable thing for you not only to get to the promised land, but for you to get to heaven. Continue.
Thy raiment wax not old upon thee.
It said in this 40 years, your clothes, not once did they wax old upon you.
Neither did thy foot swell this 40 years.
Neither did their foot swell this 40 years. Now this is just a message to warn us, to extol us, and to encourage us. That even while you're going through your wilderness, it's not that God is doing it to punish you, to chastise you, to make you feel bad. God is in that wilderness with you. God is going through this hardship with you. And He's not going to let that hardship overcome you.
Amen.
Because think about it, the Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years. And it says not once did their clothes rip up on them. Not once did their feet swell. Not once did their shoes rip up. These people were having babies. Babies that grew up and were healthy. Does that, think about that. They're in the wilderness. In the wilderness. Yet they're having babies. Their babies are growing up. Their babies are healthy. They have good clothes on their back. They have shoes on their feet. Sometimes we need to change our perspective. Because and that's what the Israelites didn't do. How many times did they complain? Right? God, you didn't do this for us. God, we want food. And God was providing all of that for them. But their perspective, their focus was on their situation. It was on their wilderness. It was on the hardships they were facing, not knowing that God was providing for them. We all have issues here. We all have one thing or another. But if you focus on your problem, that's when you ask yourself, why me? Why am I the only one going through this? At the hospital the other day, there were 2 rooms, probably about 3 or 4 rooms away from each other. In one room was a 7-month-old that was just pronounced dead. Crying, screaming going on in that room. 4 doors down. In another room, parents, 13, I think she was, also crying and screaming. In the one room, somebody was dead. In the one room, they had just received news that their child had a fracture that needed surgery. So there's crying going on in both rooms. I think the family that was crying that just lost their child, they would have preferred to have a child that only had a broken bone that needed surgery, correct?
Yes.
And the family that was crying that just got a broken bone, if they had found out why the other family was crying, maybe their tears perhaps may have stopped, and they would have appreciated God, that thank God it's only a broken bone that we have, and our child is still alive. Sometimes you have to look at your situation from a different perspective to learn to appreciate God. Sometimes you have to not look upon your pain, not look upon your suffering, and just look at life from a different perspective. Yes, I don't have a job. I've been jobless, I'm qualified, I haven't had a job for the past 4 or 5 months. But yeah, you're still eating. You're still sleeping on the bed, you're still waking up. But don't get me wrong, I know it's difficult to not have a job. But the homeless man on the street, I don't think he would care about having a job. I think he would care to be in the situation you're in, where you have a 3 square meal and you have a bed to sleep on every day. Change your perspective sometimes. It'll help you appreciate perhaps your wilderness is not really that bad when you compare yourself. So, another purpose of this wilderness, which is something I found interesting, in the book of Revelation chapter 12, we all know the story of Mary and Joseph and Jesus and what happened when Mary became pregnant and they had to run away from King Herod and the 3 wise men. We all know the story. But in the spiritual realm, this is what was going on. Revelation 12 from verse 1.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven.
It says there appeared a great wonder in heaven.
A woman clothed with the sun.
A woman clothed with the sun.
And the moon under her feet.
Okay.
And upon her head a crown of 12 stars.
Okay.
And she being with child cried.
She being with child. This is Mary being with child cried.
Travailing in birth.
Travailing in birth.
And pain to be delivered.
And they pain to be delivered.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven.
Then there was another wonder in heaven.
And behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
7 heads and 10 horns, a great red dragon.
And 7 crowns upon his head.
Okay.
And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven.
Okay.
And did cast them to the earth.
Okay.
And the dragon stood before the
woman. It says the dragon stood before the woman. In the New Testament, in the 4 Gospels, we read it as, Mary was pregnant and, she went to a manger and the King Herod was looking. That's what we read. But in the spiritual realm, what was really happening? It said a red dragon was standing before her. Continue.
And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered.
Which was ready to be delivered.
To devour her child as soon as it was born.
To devour this child as soon as it was born. So when it says we're not fighting against flesh and blood, but against principalities. We're seeing each other, people are hugging each other, all these different things are happening. But you don't know what's happening in the spiritual realm, in the unseen realm. So sometimes you don't even know what God is protecting you from when you're complaining that God allowed something to happen. You don't know what God is keeping you from when you're complaining, why God, why me? Isaiah 57 even says, don't fret sometimes when your loved ones die, because it says you don't know that the righteous are taken away early sometimes to keep them from the great hour of temptation that is yet to come on the earth. Continue.
And she brought forth a man-child.
She brought forth a man-child.
Who was to rule all nations.
Okay.
With a rod of iron.
Okay.
And her child was caught up unto God and to his
throne. Right, this is Jesus, correct?
Yes.
Let's see what it says in verse 6.
And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days.
Thank you. And the woman fled and was taken into the wilderness. And where she was fed. So sometimes God will allow certain things to happen to you to protect you from that great dragon that is ready to slew your child. But we don't see it. God, why wasn't I born in? Why didn't they have a room for me in Robert Wood Johnson Hospital? Why do I have to be giving birth in this manger over here? Right? So that's what we see. Why do I have to be giving birth in a place that is broken down and a hut that's all bruised? Why can't I be in the hospital? I mean, I'm about to deliver the King of Kings. Why can't I get the best care? Why can't I have a nurse? Why can't I have a doctor? Why can't I have this? But God himself that took you to that manger, not only is he keeping you from the devil, but God himself is the one that will now deliver that child and keep that child safe, even though you don't have the best doctor in the world. But guess what? You have the best doctor in and out of this world, God himself.
Hallelujah.
God was very angry with the Israelites. We're going to talk about some do's and don'ts while you're in the wilderness. How many times the wilderness, they will murmur, they will complain. After God took them to the Red Sea, oh, where is water going to come from? Water from the rock. Oh, where is food going to come from? Oh, Moses is not back. We need a God to worship. We need a God to serve. So you want God to be doing miracles for you every day, for you to be able to serve him. Every time you reach small adversity, you want to start murmuring and complaining. Brethren in the Lord, let's try to stay away from these things. Don't despise this wilderness. God has a purpose. It was God himself that allowed you to enter into this wilderness. So you have to trust that he knows what he's doing. You have to trust that he has your best interest at heart. Because he's the one that, I know the plans I have for you, correct? Plans to prosper you, to give you a hope in the future. So why would God allow you to go and suffer and waste away in the wilderness? Then God is a liar, because that's not part of his plan. So just focus on the end game. Focus on this God that has promised you and just trust in him. In the book of Acts chapter 7, verse 42.
Then God turned and gave them to worship.
It says that God turned away and gave them to worship.
To worship the host of heaven.
Okay.
As it is written in the book of the prophet.
Okay.
O ye house of Israel.
It says, O ye house of Israel.
Have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness?
Thank you. It says, this is God challenging these people of Israel. It says, did you even think to offer me thanks offering in your wilderness? No. Right? When do we bring thanks in church? God has done something for me, and then we bring thanks, right? Which is fine, it's normal. But God is now telling the people of Israel, while you were in the wilderness, you didn't think to offer me thanks. So these are some of the do's while you're going through your hardship. God is expecting you to come to him to say thank you for this wilderness I'm going through. Doesn't make sense. But it makes sense when you think about it. When you change your perspective. That God is feeding you with heavenly food while you're in the wilderness. God is performing miracles for you while you're in the wilderness, causing water to come up out of a rock while you're in the wilderness, causing you to have children and enjoy life, even though while you're going through your suffering. So take a step back and look at your life and look at all the good and all the positive things that are going on. And instead of focusing on all the negative, come before God with a heart of thanksgiving. Bring before a sacrifice unto him and dance even while you're in your wilderness. Because that is what God is expecting from you. Because God is doing some marvelous things in your life even while you're in your wilderness. Just take your focus off of your suffering a little bit and you'll see the big picture, how God is truly blessing you. The book of Psalm chapter 78. This is the biggest don't that we all get in trouble with when we're in the wilderness. 78 verse 19.
Yea.
It says, yea.
They spoke against God.
They spoke against God.
They said,
can
God furnish a table in the wilderness?
Can God furnish a table in the wilderness? As I'm going through this suffering, can God really do this? You may not question God with your mouth, but we have questioned God with our actions. Is it possible for God to really do this? Why are you going through? It makes sense, right? David saw Goliath. Everybody else was asking, we can't defeat this guy. We can't. I question God. You all know my story of this whole residency thing. Based on my credentials, I had no business being accepted into any residency program. I question God with my actions. Is it really possible? After a while, I started thinking, maybe I need to start looking for another career. Because I was asking God, can you really grant me acceptance into a program, even though I do not have any of the credentials to be accepted into that program? And then I get accepted into a program, the same program that rejected me 4 times in a row. Doesn't make sense. But God furnished the table for me, even in my wilderness. Amen. But don't question God. Don't look upon your wilderness. Look upon this God. He's able to do all things. All things. But when we start doubting Him, when we start lacking belief, when we start questioning Him, these are the things that gets God upset with us. These are the things that makes God turn His back on us. And may God never turn His back on us in Jesus' name. The book of Daniel 6:23 says, Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My God sent His angel and shut the lion's mouth, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before Him, and also before you, O king. If you are thrown in the lion's den because you are stealing from the king, whatever happens is on your own hands. But if you're thrown in the lion's den because you're worshiping God and doing what you're supposed to do, basically you're coming to church, you're serving God, you're reading your word, you're doing everything right, and yet you find yourself in the midst of a lion's den, and yet you find yourself going through hardship. God Himself is the one that allowed you to be thrown into that lion's den. So God Himself must send His angel to make sure that those lions don't bite you. But He's waiting to see how you're going to react when you enter into that lion's den. Or how you're going to react when they're pushing you into that lion's den. God could have saved Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego before they entered into the fire. But He was waiting to see what their reaction would be. God allowed it. But guess what? God was already waiting in the fire for them. If they bowed their head and they didn't go into that fire, they will have never met with God. Because God was where? In the fire. Don't despise the fire that you're being led into because you're serving God. God is the one that made the fire. So He's standing in it. And the fire has to stand at attention when the Maker is there. So they cannot burn anything. There's 3 people we threw in here. Why do we say 4? Someone that doesn't know God says the 4th person is like the image of the Son of God. Even the eyes of an unbeliever were opened spiritually to see what was going on. And when the Master left the fire, that fire began to serve its purpose again. And what happened after they came out? They said, let's promote these people. Let's promote Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They will now be holding important offices. So you are praying for promotion, but you don't want to go through fire. God, they passed over me 20 times already. When will my turn come? And you stop praying. You stop coming to church. Because there's no more power in that church. Everybody else is getting promotion except for me. Don't despise this fire and this wilderness you're going through. Yes?
Psalm 66, verse 8.
Okay.
Oh, bless our God, you people.
Oh, bless our God, you people.
And make the voice of His praise to be heard.
Okay.
Which holdeth our soul in His love, and suffereth not our feet to be moved.
Okay.
For Thou, O God, hast proved us.
Thou, O God, you have proved us.
Thou hast tried us.
You have tried us.
As silver is tried.
As silver is tried.
Thou broughtest us into the net.
Okay.
Thou lays affliction upon our knowledge.
You brought us into the net. This is God. You brought us into the net. Now you're messing up my flow. I was going to end with this. It's okay. You brought us into the net. Continue.
Thou laid affliction upon our Lord.
You, God, you laid affliction upon our head. Continue.
Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads.
You caused men to ride over our heads. Caused people to come and oppress us. Caused people to speak depravities against us. Continue.
We went through fire.
We went through fire and through water.
But Thou broughtest us into a wealthy
But
place.
but you did what? You brought us into a wealthy place. There is a reason you're going through this process. The outcome is assured. You're going to get to your wealthy place. You're going to get to your promised land. But God needs to prepare you also for heaven. That fire is to burn your sins away. That water is to drain your pride that you're walking around, so that when you get to the promised land, you're not going to forget God. That promised land that the Israelites were going to, it's just idol worshippers everywhere. If they didn't build a strong relationship with God, they would have gone to the promised land. And I mean, these people already built their own God in the wilderness. Think about it. When God was blessing them, they already built a golden calf to worship. How much more when they enter into the promised land? So there are some vices, there are some sins that we have that we don't even know, that God is using this wilderness to purge. But He's not allowing you to get burned even though you're standing in fire. He's not allowing your clothes to tear even though you're in the wilderness. This is an awesome and a marvelous God we serve. Right? Yea, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For what? Because thou art with me. Your rod and your staff, they will comfort me. That's it. Even though I'm walking through the valley of shadow of death, I cannot fear because God is with you. So the message I'm trying to share is, in your wilderness, whatever hardship you are facing, God is with you. The only reason that hardship has not consumed you is because God is standing there with you. You don't have the power to stand against the lion. You don't have the power to stand in the fire. Whatever hardship you're facing, it is impossible for you to go through what you're going through and to still be standing and to still come to church and have a smile on your face if God is not with you. Yes, your difficulties are extreme. But the reason you're still going through it is because God is with you. The book of Psalm 77, verse 16.
The waters saw thee.
It says, the waters saw thee.
Oh God.
Oh God.
The waters saw
The
thee.
waters saw thee.
They were afraid.
They were
The
afraid.
depths also were troubled.
They were troubled. This is when Moses was with the people of Israel. You really think Moses and his rod and the Israelites were able to just walk through the Red Sea like that? It says the waters saw you. The waters saw God standing before the Israelites. And when the maker sees their master, what do? They stand attention. So the waters had no choice but to split open because God was coming through. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, even be ye lifted up, because the King of glory is coming in. So they saw God, the waters saw God coming in. They had no choice but to make way for Him. So you are scared because the Red Sea is before you. God is with you.
Amen.
God is with you. Psalm 66. Now I can't go there because we already read it. Right? The consequences of this wilderness you're passing through is the end point, right? He's bringing you to a wealthy place. 1 Peter 5 verse 4 we read today. It says, when the chief shepherd shall appear, you shall receive a crown of glory that fadeth not away. 1 Peter 2 from verse 20. What does it say?
For what glory is it?
It says what glory or what credit is it?
If when you be buffeted for your faults,
When you're buffeted or you're beaten for your faults. Continue.
you shall take it patiently.
You take it patiently. What credit is it if you have been punished for a sin you committed? We all know not to do wrong, not to live a life of iniquity. God says no sin will go unpunished. Your lack of unbelief, your murmuring, you're turning your back on God, you're withdrawing from God during your time of the wilderness. Those are all the things God does not like. So God is saying if you're punished for all these wrongdoings you're doing, that's on you. But continue.
When you do well,
But it says when you do well
and suffer for it,
and you suffer for
you
it,
take it patiently.
if you take it patiently,
This is acceptable with God.
this is acceptable, this is commendable before God. Continue.
For even hereunto were ye called, Because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example, and you should follow his steps.
Thank you. Because unto this were you called. Because Christ also suffered. Unto this path of suffering were you also called. Suffering for doing good, not for sinning. Let's get it straight. Suffering for doing good. You're going through a hard time. Don't have a job, looking for a child, been through to every doctor. Your health is still not well, not doing well in school, having issues with your children, having marital issues with your spouse. You're the only one going through problems in the world. Just keep your eyes focused on God. He's with you through that hardship you're going through. Bring a sacrifice of praise even during your dark times. Get on your knees and praise God. Every time you hear in the New Testament, you say, and the Lord Jesus withdrew into the wilderness to pray. Pray even in the midst of your wilderness. That's not the time to relax. It's not the time to withdraw away from God. It's not the time to stop going to church. So don't look at your circumstance and say, oh, it's the church that caused this. Or it's Mr. This that caused this. Or it's my forefather's auntie that caused this. God is the one that is allowing you to go through that. And he has a reason to allow you. As long as you stay focused on the end point. Stay focused on doing right, on righteousness. And I'll close with this, because in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8, Second Corinthians 4 from verses 8.
We are troubled on every side.
It says we are hard pressed on every side. We are troubled on every side. Who feels like that today? You feel like you wake up every morning and it's just one issue after another. One problem after another. Not just from the front, but on every side. Continue.
Yet not distressed.
We are hard pressed on every side, but yet we are not crushed. We are troubled on every side, yet we are not distressed. Continue.
We're perplexed.
We are perplexed,
But not in despair.
but not in despair. Even though you are overwhelmed, even though you are burdened, don't lose hope. Don't be in despair. Because you're not serving a hopeless God. Don't limit the Holy One of Israel. If you lose hope, that means you're telling God he's unable to do or solve whatever problem you're facing. I mean, if God can raise someone from the dead that's been dead for 4 days, what is your jobless situation? If God can give someone who is 80 years old a child, you that you're 50, you still have 30 years waiting to do. So what are you complaining about? You won't wait for 30 years in Jesus' name. Amen. But that's God that did it then. He's still the same God now.
Oh, yes.
So if he can do it then, why can't he do yours now? So don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Don't be in despair. Continue.
Persecuted.
It says we're persecuted,
But not forsaken.
but we're not forsaken. Continue.
Cast down.
We have been struck down. We have been pushed down. We have been cast down.
But not destroyed.
But we are not destroyed. So it's essentially saying no matter how bad your situation is, God is still with you. And he's going to pick up all the pieces and make a beautiful mural out of you. But if you let go of God, if you lose hope in God, I'm sorry, God may not be able to help you then. But this time of your wilderness is what is going to determine if you end up in the promised land like Joshua and Caleb, or if we will not perish in Jesus' name. Because there were thousands of people that perished in the wilderness because of their lack of unbelief, because they chose not to trust God, because all they did was complain every day. I'm not saying what you're going through is not difficult. I'm not saying, oh, if you're saying in your heart, this guy is just saying whatever he wants. he doesn't know what my problem is. I don't know what your problem is. I don't want to know what your problem is. I have my own problems I'm dealing with. I have my own issues I'm dealing with. But I know the God that I serve. I know what God has done for me in the past. Learn to look at the little reminders that God gives you in your life to let you know that He's with you. When you're driving on the road and somebody almost hits you, and you say, oh, thank you, God. Those nurses in our midst, when you almost inject the wrong dose of medication into a patient, and you say, oh, thank you, God. When they do clearance sale at your job, and they remove 2/3 of the people there, and you're not part of those people. There are little reminders God gives us throughout our days. Little reminders like when you wake up in the morning and you're alive. It's not your doing. It's God. So God gives us these reminders just to let us know that He's still with us. So hold on to Him. Stand strong. It's not easy. The journey may seem long. But God is the one that's allowing it to happen. And by God's grace, we shall all reach our promised land in Jesus. Amen.